Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to talk about the Simgot EM2Rs. This is the EM2 Rollshin. Basically, it's an improved version off the EM2s. They changed the shell to be a little bit more ergonomic and nice looking, and these retail for $110 on Amazon. I will have a generic affiliate link in the description below if you decide that you want to purchase these. These were sent to me for review, so I do want to thank Simgot for that. It will not affect what I say about this. You will soon see that because not everything is perfect, obviously. So my goal of this is to help you decide that if you're in the market for an IEM, if this is an IEM that interests you. So I'm going to do the unboxing just to show you the packaging, because I honestly thought that this was a pretty premium experience. I got really expensive IEMs that had a very different unboxing experience. That review will come later. But for $110, this is great. Now, at the launch of this review, there is a special happening on Amazon right now, so there is a deal going on. I will have a description with comments on what that deal is below, but obviously things can change. So we're going to base the review off the fact that new it's $110 at retail. So packaging, you have this like Renaissance art style front. It's actually a really nice box. The gold writing on the back, the little Knowles logo is because this is a hybrid IEM, meaning that there is a dynamic driver and there is a BA, or a balanced armature driver, which handles frequencies differently. They actually have them separated quite a bit. They're not fully integrated with each other. So the dynamic driver is doing more of the bass and it crosses into the mids and some highs, and then the balanced armature is focused more on the highs. So I want to open this because I honestly was like, damn, this is an awesome box. I had to double check the price because I was like, how much was this again? So this card has obviously been opened and used, and I showed a lot of people this. And when you open it, you have this really nice little pop-up card. Funny enough, it's actually almost upside down. I don't know if I was just, okay, I was doing it wrong. So this is how it's normally presented. You could tell I put it in wrong. But you open it up and you have this little card with the warranty. It says, "It's a pleasure to meet you, music lover." Little letter from the CEO printed on it. So pretty cool. Now you can see that if the IEMs were in here, so let me pop one of these off. These use the 2-pin connector, by the way, so if you're ever looking to upgrade, you can buy that in case you want your own cable. At this price range, I'd recommend just sticking with what it comes with. It actually works pretty nicely. So when these ear tips aren't there, these were like flush, and the presentation was just so cool. So I'm going to connect that wire again. Now you get this little pin. Not a big deal there. You get a really nice case. The case is a little bulky, but it's a nice looking case. And then when you open it up, just to show you, there are 2 sets of tips. So you have, and I didn't know this originally, I just thought there was different sizes. There's ear tip 1 and ear tip 2. They basically have a different size opening on it. Ear tip 1s are much more open, and ear tip 2 has a more focused port coming out of it, which does change the sound characteristics. This isn't a comfort change. You have small, medium, large for each style. And they have descriptions. It says ear tip 1, powerful mid-high frequency, high resolution and penetration, crystal clear sound. Ear tip 2, enhanced bass and superior listening comfort, outstanding attenuation of ambient sibilance, natural and bass driven sound. So like I measured this. I actually have an IEC 711 clone now, so I can do actual measurements that I think are accepted for the most part by the community. I'll show those measurements shortly, but these tips didn't really change the bass response at all. It seems like it can change bass response because what ear tip 2 is doing with the smaller opening is it's attenuating the treble differently, and there's a bigger valley in the presence region, like between 5 and 7,000 hertz, 5 to 7 kilohertz. There's a big dip, and the spike that happens at about 4,700 hertz, your upper frequencies, are less pronounced with the ear tip 2s, which helps cut some of the sibilance. Not all, but some of it. So I listened to them both for a while, and I recommend trying both, and don't form your own conclusions on which one's going to sound better. Play with them for a while and see what you like. So if you remove this, inside was a couple more pieces of paper, and then the cable was wrapped kind of nicely right underneath. So that's the unboxing experience. Now I want to talk about a couple things with the EM2Rs themselves. So this now they are labeled left and right, both on the earpiece, the wire wrap, if you will, around your ear, and then the plug to connect this in. So it's faint, but once you have this set up, the idea of this, for those who aren't familiar with IEMs on my channel, because I typically don't cover them, it hooks over your ear, so it's nice and snug, and then you have a nice, comfortable feel. These are incredibly comfortable to wear. The tips are a little bit larger. They're these, is it like a brass, I believe they use? I'd have to double check. I'll put a text if I'm wrong. But basically, it is a fairly large tip, and I was concerned on how much pressure that would put and how much the silicone tip would actually absorb some of that to be more comfortable. It does okay. For the most part, it still kind of vanishes. Honestly, the ergonomics of the shell make this extremely comfortable to wear. The cable's nice. It actually looks really good. And you have this little sleeve that doesn't really stay. Originally, I thought it would have been nice to, it's good for wire wrapping, basically. But if you're the type of person who likes to pull it up because you want it a little bit more snug, you don't want it as open while you're just wearing it, this will drop back down. Cord's a good length. The plug feels nice. It feels, it's a metal plug on the end. It has like this textured aluminum on it. So overall, it feels solid. So let's talk about sound quality. I'm going to just give my subjective opinion first, and then I'll show you measurements and go over that. Overall, the bass is crazy boosted. There's definitely a lift, approximately 10 decibels, so it has some strong bass, and it carries all the way into the lower frequencies. So if you want that rumble effect, the sub bass, this will definitely do that, which is great if you also use IEMs for movies. Not everyone's doing critical listening with music. They might just be doing casual listening, things like that. But if you are watching a movie like Dune that has a lot of good sub bass, then this is an IEM that's going to do exceptionally well there. Now the mids are recessed. I wouldn't think of this as a typical Harman curve. It's a little bit more aggressive on the bass emphasis and a little underemphasized in the mid-range before it picks back up. Overall, I think the voices still sound good. They just take a half a step back from the bass. They're not as present, but the vocals you do hear actually sound quite nice. I think if anything, the male vocals are affected just a little bit more than female vocals with the way these are. They don't really have some of the presence and I don't even want to say warmth, but they don't cut through the track as much on this. They're just pulled back a little bit, if that makes sense. But once you get into, so the treble's interesting on this. I'm trying to stick with just subjective and not keep going to frequencies, but these can get a little bit shouty and sibilant in certain frequencies, and then in other treble regions it's dark. And there isn't a lot of airiness to it. The soundstage isn't crazy wide. It's definitely more of a centered presentation. So it's not a bad thing. I have a couple products I'm actually reviewing right now that I actually like the fact that it's a little bit more quiet and intimate and centered and not as airy, because I don't always want that when I'm listening to stuff. Sometimes I just want something kind of chill and low-key and easy to listen to. I think on a lot of tracks, if you listen to a lot of like EDM, hip-hop, watch a lot of movies, you want to watch a podcast or listen to a podcast, these are going to be great for stuff like that. Now, if you're buying these with the expectation to get more of a reference level sound, critical listening, lots of acoustics, things like that, this isn't the right setup for you. There's actually other models that Simgot offers, and I don't know what they measure like, but they are different. There are different models from them and other companies that are tuned differently. I found that in some tracks, when I turned it up, the sibilance was a little too much for me. They got a little bit too shouty and harsh. There's other headphones that do that too, so it's just kind of the characteristic of it. Some people that are sensitive to that region, they won't like it, and others, it won't bother them, and they'll think there's a lot more detail there because there's more treble in that region. Overall, the sound's not bad. I actually found that at lower to medium volumes, I really enjoyed this sound profile. Typically, I like more of an elevated bass and treble response at lower volumes. If you've ever heard about this, look into the Fletcher-Munson curve, which basically talks about how you perceive frequencies differently at lower to high volumes. And I found that these naturally do better at lower to medium volumes. When you turn them up, they can get a little harsh and grainy. I feel like they lose a little bit of control of the track, but they get so loud that I couldn't even max it out plugged into my MacBook headphone jack. So they get crazy loud. The efficiency of this, I think it's 109 decibel sensitivity rating at 32 ohms. Crazy easy to drive. Don't buy a headphone amp for this. Just plug it into anything with a headphone jack. A $10 Apple dongle, if you don't have a headphone jack, is all you need. Realistically, anything past that is pretty much overkill. So they're really easy to drive. They're fun to listen to. I find some things sibilant, some things recessed, a little bit dark. But overall, for like hip hop and EDM at low to medium volumes, a blast to listen to, and they were actually really comfortable. So let's go into frequency response real quick, just so I can show you what I mean by that, and then we'll wrap up at the end. So looking at the measurements real quick, you can see that there's a slight roll off in the bass presence, or the bass region. If you're looking at ear tip 2, which is the orange line, so if I hover over, you can see that roll off just a little bit. However, the biggest reason why I liked ear tip 2s, and the mid-range is basically identical between the two. You can't notice that. You can see that it dips down like I was talking about earlier. But the biggest change to me is right here in the 4500 hertz range, 4.5 kilohertz. It takes a few decibels off when you use ear tip 2, and to me that was worth it alone because I had some trouble with sibilants on certain songs, and it ended up being a little less enjoyable for me. So try the different tips. You can see what it does to the sound frequency response. Now the downside of going with the ear tip style 2 is in the presence region, the 6.5 kilohertz area, it's scooped even more, and that makes some things sound darker in turn. Overall, I still preferred to have that little scoop as opposed to having too strong of an emphasis in the mid 4000 hertz range, because honestly, to me, I couldn't listen to it at louder volumes without it be kind of graining to me. So anyway, this is the frequency response. I don't want to harp on this too much, but that is how the IEM performs. So the EM2R is pretty interesting because of the whole dual driver thing. I mentioned that briefly, but basically you have, like I said, the sub duties and the bass and mid-range being taken care of by the dynamic driver, and they use the BA to handle more of the mid to upper frequencies. I found the only odd quirk is when you turn it up to extreme volumes for the short periods of time I could tolerate it, is the BA seems to get a little bit louder and have more control at louder volumes than the dynamic driver, so the frequencies start to separate and it changes the tonality of the IEM just a little bit. Again, these are as extreme volumes, and I can't listen to it at that level without damaging my ears. It's just something I observed based off the way this is tuned. So is it the best IEM for $100? No, because what is the best? You're going to have different preferences. Everyone's going to like different things. Measurement-wise, it's okay. If you're a bass head, and again, you're using this for movies too, I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. Movie tracks typically aren't too sharp or sibilant sounding anyway, so that might complement these even better, with that being said. So anyway, this is my first IEM review, I think, dedicated to stuff like this. I'm going to be doing a lot more, but I want to kick this off because I knew this was on a special sale price and wanted to let the channel know about it. So if you have any suggestions on the format, what I discuss, what I skip, let me know, and I'll do my best to improve going forward. But anyway, with that being said, thank you so much for stopping by and checking this out, and I hope to see you in future reviews. That being said, I'll see you next time.